Far south as the
Can you
Florida
imagine
Panhandle
it snowing?
and icy roads in Georgia, hundreds of flight delays. All of this followed by bitter cold with freezing temperatures and sub-zero wind chills. Our weather team is tracking it all. Minneapolis on edge. Defense officials tell ABC News up to 1,500 Army paratroopers are on alert for possible deployment to Minnesota. The Minneapolis mayor calls federal agents an occupying force. This follows weeks of ICE arrests and street protests.
Checks out, actually.
Business owners tell us some workers are too frightened to show up for work. European leaders hold an emergency meeting on Greenland. What they're saying about President Trump's plan to make it part of the U.S. as he threatens new tariffs on countries that oppose it. The sudden end to a wild police chase through multiple states. A murder suspect is finally taken into custody. Shocking new details from law enforcement in the arrest of actor Kiefer Sutherland. An Uber driver claims he was allegedly punched repeatedly and that Sutherland allegedly tried to choke him. Prince Harry heads back to Britain and back to court. Why he's suing another tabloid publisher. A new record for Venus Williams, now the oldest woman to ever play singles at the Australian Open, 28 years after her debut down under. Triumph and heartbreak in the NFL playoffs as some teams move on and others move out.
Tell me about it.
And it's the game of their lives on the eve of college football's national championship. One couple's 40-year love affair with each other and Indiana football.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for joining us. Europe is preparing a response to President Trump's play for Greenland, and millions of Americans are bracing for a double dose of wintry weather, snow followed by an Arctic blast in the east. Earlier today, that same system was responsible for this rare sight in Florida, snow. That snow is now targeting the I-95 corridor, including New York, Philadelphia, and parts of New England. And as you just watched, football fans brave chilly temperatures and at times heavy snow in the playoff matchup between the New England Patriots and Houston Texans. We'll have more on that game later. One storm stretches from the mid-Atlantic to the northeast and the other across the Midwest, wreaking havoc for those hitting the roads and skies over the long and busy holiday weekend. More than 400 flight cancellations and nearly 4,000 delays. We have team coverage tonight. Our weather team is standing by with the forecast, but ABC's Morgan Norwood leads us off tonight.
Tonight, a winter 1-2 punch putting 50 million Americans on alert as back-to-back storm systems sweep from the Midwest to the East Coast. In upstate New York, the blustering winds hurling blinding snow.
Howdy.
Tough to navigate. Freezing rain pelting this Long Island highway.
Apparently it's cold somewhere.
To slush on the
I
roads in northern New Jersey.
didn't know that could happen in the United
already
States.
On the ground in eastern Pennsylvania.
Weird.
Neighborhoods quickly disappearing under a fresh coat of snow. The weather even impacting game day.
I know that field's going to be slippery out there today.
In New England, the Patriots and Texans before the game preparing for a snowy showdown. In Chicago, Rams fans braving feels like temperatures near 10 below as they face the Bears.
As we get closer to the game time, that's when we have some snow showers that start to develop.
The wintry weather reaching as far south as Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. The Sun Belt getting a rare taste of winter. Snow falling along Interstate 10 in Fort Walton Beach. Flurries falling over Pensacola, a sight seldom seen in this part of the country.
And Lindsay, you can see
I guess the Bears are doing well. The Bears lost.
Freezing temperatures expected overnight.
Oh, do you mean like actual animal bears?
Black ice. All of this winter weather also
Check
causing
out
air travel delays,
sweater.
cancellations. At least 4,500 delays from coast to
I'm not
coast.
Daredevil.
Significant ripple effect there. Morgan, thank you. Let's
Yeah,
get
the
right
Bears
to
lost.
meteorologist
It was
Jeff
overtime,
Smith from
I
our
think.
New York station WABC. And Jeff,
Actually,
I
you know
you're
what?
Also
Oh, let me see if they have that in here. Oh, he was on ABC this week. Okay, yeah, we're gonna watch ABC this week. All right, we're gonna skip a lot of this.
Meanwhile, residents and business owners feeling the impact of ICE operations.
What have the last 2 weeks been like for you as a business owner? It's horrible. It's horrible.
Larry Rinaldo owns
nobody wants
the
to go
Northeast
outside.
Moose,
Nobody wants
a
to be out there.
Minneapolis staple.
All right, hold on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Scott Bassett. Need to watch that interview. Okay, we gotta watch Bassett. We gotta watch this guy on This Week. What's going on here?
in that country after weeks of a bloody crackdown on protesters. The death toll is reportedly soaring into the thousands. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell joins us now. Good evening, Ian.
Yeah, Lindsay, the war of words between
Everybody's dead. Everybody's dead in Iran. Everybody's dead in Iran. They killed all the protesters.
Iranian President Pezeshkian posting a warning to the US that, quote, any aggression against the supreme leader...
Yeah, we're still going to bomb Iran. This just tells me that we're still going to bomb Iran. Like, even after, like, everything's passed. Like, after, it was ridiculous.
On Saturday, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei accusing President Trump of being the main culprit for the killings in Iran that activists say has now surpassed 3,300. President Trump responding, saying it's time to look for new leadership in Iran. Despite this rhetoric, it appears that the likelihood of military action has diminished for now, and after 3 long bloody weeks of repression, the protest movement seems to have stopped. Lindsay?
Ian, thank you. And overseas to a ceasefire deal between the Syrian government and Kurdish-led forces.
If not us, we will greenlight someone else to do it.
Syria, seizing
yeah, someone else like Israel.
major territories from the Kurds. The U.S. was caught in the middle and pushed for a peace deal. The Kurds have long been strong allies of the U.S.
I guess the Kurdish Free State is going down in Syria.
Fight against ISIS. But the U.S. also supports the Syrian government since the brutal dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad came to an end. Back here in the U.S., we have new details tonight.
That's it. Literally story right now. They just skimmed on it for like 2 seconds. More on Kiefer Sutherland though. Oh yeah, foosball. Fucking Texans couldn't do shit, man.
Troy and Joe, you all had a front row seat to that epic defensive showdown.
All right, Lindsay, thank you very much. Well, we are at a snowy Gillette Stadium. What a game we just witnessed. I'm not sure what we just witnessed. We see
so disappointed
8
right
turnovers in a playoff game, but in the end, it's the New England Patriots and young Drake May moving on to the AFC champ game.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You know, you come
in.
They
could have won that game so easily. CJ Stroud just had his head on backwards.
Here with the New England Patriots as a player and a second.
Oh yeah, they can't show you the footage.
Not a lot of people had high expectations. They're coming off a 4-win season a year ago. They spend a lot of money in free agency. They upgrade the roster. They draft well. And then they get on this win streak where they start to gain some confidence. And it's taken them now all the way to the AFC Championship game. This was an electric crowd here at Gillette Stadium today.
10 seconds. Denver Broncos, they don't have Bo Nix. They have Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. You expect him to play well?
I do. I think Sean Payton is too
good
they're
going to lose.
And a coordinator.
They're going to lose to the Patriots. The defense is too good.
To have success.
Patriots defense is actually pretty good. It's going to be Patriots in the Super Bowl. Broncos, they're wrapped up, man.
The New England Patriots from the game
Broncos
today against the
it'll be Patriots Seahawks.
Lindsay, back to you.
Again.
From Foxborough to the Final Four. All right, Joe and Troy, thanks so much. And there's so much more ahead on World News Tonight this Sunday, including the hunt for the person who shot and killed a college student as he drove back to school, and why Prince Harry is heading back to Britain and back to court.
Oh wait, I'm not a college student. All right, yeah, the rest of this news is garbage. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Give me Saturday Night Live. Hopefully, is this JD Vance? Who's this supposed to be? Melania? I don't understand. They don't have like issued like the mandatory or standard issued like firearms. It's just whatever they brought from home basically. Midterms, man. I just don't see that happening. All right, give me the fake news. Then we need more of this. We need more of this.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you live in the neighborhood? Yep, this is my block. This is my area. I don't go into other people's neighborhoods and try and intimidate them. I protect my people. Are you giving out your name? No, I'm okay with that. Our neighborhood showing up.
I need to obtain one of those. I think everybody does. Yeah, I think it's actually one of our rights to obtain one of these and to and depending on the state, carry it around, loaded or unloaded. It depends on, the rules and regulations of the of those around you. What counts and what doesn't. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we're required to have one of these.
40 or 50. That's pretty good for a quick turnout. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with that. My coworker hates Illinois laws on firearms. Why? What are we can open carry in Texas without a concealed license. We don't need it's very restrictive. Oh, yeah, we can open carry long guns, without a license, loaded or unloaded. You can carry them in your car wherever you want. If it's a handgun, it has to be. I think if it's a handgun, you have to have it concealed. But long guns, it's whatever. There's no rules, basically.
The interim Ayatollah of
interim Ayatollah of Iran. That's Marco Rubio's job, all right. Void card have to get from state police, and then open carry to have to apply for a CC license. Wait a minute, is Puerto Rico just our Caribbean Israel? I'm gonna get to that, by the way. There's much more, but low-key, I'm very ignorant on 2A laws here. Yeah, I think we need to brush up on the 2As, and if anything, just get some stuff just to look at, because it's kind of cool. There's a lot of gun nuts out there that just collect them just to have them and look at them. I mean, hey, why not?
While the Trump administration,
add it to the Marvel Legends collection. Add it to your Funko Pop collection. I mean, you got like 10 Funko Pops, right? Why can't you have an M4A1 or something? Buying used isn't a bad thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people love to buy and trade them all the time. Just another hobby to have, right?
claims that, yep.
I missed the joke, sorry. All right, that's all I needed from them. I don't know. Other news. See, where do I go from here? All right, let me. What else happened here?
Tonight, the search continues for a gunman in a deadly shooting at a historic New Orleans restaurant. Police say that gunman shot and killed a person inside Dookie Chase's on Friday night. 3 other people were also shot. The restaurant is a fixture in the.
I changed off of, right? This isn't Saturday Night Live anymore.
City's Tremaine neighborhood. Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama each dined there while in office. A murder suspect is in custody in New Hampshire.
Never mind. You know what? Stupid ass news. Affordability, the made up word, takes center stage at the Detroit Auto Show.
324, Saturday, January 24th,
What?
only on Paramount Plus.
Well, the 12-day Detroit Auto Show opens to the public today. It
What's going on here?
brings together the latest vehicles from companies around the world, of course, including Detroit's Big Three. Now, this year's show, it comes as automakers are pivoting away from EVs as concerns about affordability mount. Senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve got a preview with Ford CEO Jim Farley.
Kicking off the Detroit Auto Show, Ford leaned into its popular Bronco line, announcing the Bronco RTR, a performance edition of the Hardy SUV. Throughout the exhibition,
The Bronco
hall,
looks
trucks
so
and SUVs
ass, man.
reign supreme, while electric vehicles take a less
Like, without
prominent
fender
role as
flares, it
US
just looks like
automakers
ass.
have written off tens of billions of dollars in EV projects.
Well, hi, everyone, and thank you all for joining us.
Ford CEO Jim Farley.
The American customers want less carbon footprint vehicles. Just they're going about it a little differently than everyone thought, including the regulations. So hybrid is not what it used to be, like a super efficient one thing. We can now use it for energy storage, for energy exports. We can put it in off-road. We can make it for performance vehicles. And I think you're going to see that across our industry.
Did Americans just not want EVs?
No, I think the EV...
I think hybrid is the way. Damn, he looks pissed right there. Holy shit. Look what the fuck you just asked me. Yeah. Screenshot. There you go. That. Yeah, I think hybrid's definitely the way to go, honestly.
Market is really vibrant, and people buy EVs. They do not go back to combustion vehicles. But it's only 8% of our industry. But it's 8% of our industry. That's not small either.
Yeah, that's not small.
And it's probably going to grow. People want EVs where there's an economic advantage. They are going to do the math in their pocketbook. If that EV is cheaper to operate, they're going to buy it. If it's more expensive to operate, they're not going to buy it. So it's on us as an industry to make affordable EVs.
We met up with Dave Vanderwerp, car and drivers testing director and longtime Detroit Auto Show attendee.
it's pretty chaotic right now. And all these automakers have been working really hard on EVs for the last 5 to 10 years, and now it's hard to pivot quickly in the automotive industry.
It's almost a bit of uncertainty that hangs over this show as to what the future is.
Yeah, but we're seeing, obviously, EV sales are down, but there's a lot of new non-EVs, and some of which are pretty affordable. Still, the market seems to be marching full speed ahead toward trucks and SUVs, and that doesn't seem to be mitigating at all.
Many of those big trucks and SUVs taking center stage are very expensive. Some
they're like $80,000. Yeah, what the hell?
About affordability is Detroit.
I think everyone's concerned about it.
Perhaps for good reason. The average price of a new car topped $50,000 last year for the first time, as a growing number of Americans are choosing to finance car purchases for longer, up to 7 years.
Is there an affordability problem?
I think that there is no doubt that a company like Ford is going to allocate more capital to more affordable lineup. No doubt about it. I wouldn't say it's a crisis of affordability. It's like, I think the customer's kind of up to here, and we now need to, make a more compelling offer at the lower price point. Our best-selling, fastest-turning vehicle is a Maverick. It's our most affordable truck.
Why did cars get so expensive?
A lot of reasons. We saw all the parts getting more expensive. We're the #1 producer in the U.S. We make 80% of what we sell here, and our supply chain got more expensive over the last couple of years. And a lot of it is technology and safety, and a lot of it is just everything's more expensive.
Ford also announced a partnership with clothing maker Carhartt, aimed at training local workers for skilled labor positions that have become hard to fill, as the automaker starts a new push to make the expensive affordable.
2026 is going to be a pretty interesting year in the car business.
And to keep American car buyers in the driver's seat. For CBS Saturday Morning, I'm Chris Van Cleve in Detroit.
I mean, it's interesting. I understand why hybrids are getting really popular, because it's the best of both worlds. I had a hybrid. I had to sell her. Her name was Minnie because I got her in Minnesota, when we moved to New York. But I loved it because you didn't have to depend on the charging station. You could also use gas.
Right, that range anxiety. I do think what's going to be interesting from a business perspective, though, is when, at some point, Democrats will be back in power.
Damn it. I was saying, come back. They were having a good conversation there. I wanted to listen. Okay. Yeah. All right. Meanwhile, in London, bruv, heckler interrupts Star Spangled Banner at NBA game in London. Wins cheers from the crowd. Hell yeah, I think we've just learned a lesson here. Anytime somebody sings the Star Spangled Banner, that's an opportunity to protest. Wow. Huh. Alright, we'll get back to Greenland in a little bit. How else? What else is going on? Oh, yeah, we're protesting. Protest at the bar.
CBP is having a happy hour. CBP is responsible for the terrorizing of our community.
Accurate.
Establishments should not be welcoming them here. They should not be able to have a happy hour.
Also accurate.
Well, our communities have been terrorized, abducted, and kidnapped, and killing people for standing up to them. Ice out now! Ice out now! Ice out now!
I'm just gonna let you know. There's 9 people sitting at a table and a Nazi sits down. That's 10 Nazis at a table. Same thing, that's what happens at the bar, right? A bunch of happy Nazis, yeah. But yeah, no justice, no peace. All right, let's see. What do we need to watch? Need to watch Scott Bassett for sure.
This Sunday, Green New Deal. President Trump threatens NATO allies with steep tariffs as he escalates his push for U.S. control of Greenland.
We need Greenland for national security.
I'll talk exclusively to Treasury Secretary
give Tim
Scott
Kaine his own
Bessent.
show, man.
Plus, Flashpoint. As protests and tensions grow in Minneapolis, the Justice Department launches a criminal investigation into Minnesota's Democratic leaders.
In every situation, we're doing targeted enforcement.
It's a campaign of organized brutality
Fascist
against
Barbie
the people of
over here.
Minnesota by our own federal government.
We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos.
I'll talk to Minneapolis
Why
Mayor
not?
Jacob Fry. And war powers. Senate Republicans blocked
said no.
an effort requiring President Trump to get congressional approval for more military action in Venezuela.
The reason the founding fathers gave this power to Congress is to make it not so easy to go to war.
Before you send our sons and daughters to war, come to Congress.
I'll talk to the bipartisan pair behind the legislation, Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky and Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. Joining me for insight
Tim
and
Kaine
analysis
have like
are
a fucking
NBC
coupon
News
book that
National
like
Security
every weekend he
Managing
gets to
Editor
be on a
Carol
weekend
Lee,
show?
Former Homeland Security Secretary
How about we
Jim
just don't do
Johnson,
war? Yeah, what
Wall
about
Street
that?
Journal columnist
What
Peggy
if we
Noonan.
didn't? Yeah, what if we
Welcome
just
to
like said
Sunday.
no?
It's Meet the
Huh?
Press.
What about that? How about instead of requiring the congressional approval and whatnot, we just said no.
Good Sunday morning. There are new flashpoints on the world stage and here at home. Protesters taking to the streets in both Copenhagen and Minneapolis. NBC News confirming the Justice Department has launched a criminal investigation into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, accusing the
They have a
two
criminal
Democrats
investigation.
of
They must be
conspiring
criminals.
to impede federal immigration officials as the battle over ICE agents deployed in American cities intensifies. Meanwhile, President Trump shocking America's closest allies by signaling he's poised to punish them in his pursuit of taking over Greenland, leading European countries to call for an emergency meeting. The president writing Saturday, starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On
That's
June
us,
1st,
man. We're gonna have to pay for that shit. What the fuck do you mean? You're implementing a 10% fucking import tax? What are we even doing? Yeah, exactly.
26, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland.
For the complete and total
Making
purchase
official
of
what
Greenland.
he threatened earlier.
I don't understand. It really bothers me when he highlights or when he capitalizes words that don't need to be capitalized, such as deal, complete, total. Like, what are you fucking?
In the week.
That's how I know he wrote it.
I may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland, because we need Greenland for national security.
NATO has been dealing with us on Greenland. We need Greenland for national security very badly. If we don't have it, we have a big hole in national security.
Have a big
Now
hole
it's
in
Treasury
it.
Secretary Scott Bessent. Secretary Bessent, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Good morning.
Loki, I'm happy I don't have a passport, because where would any American go without getting mean mugged or just mugged for what Trump's done? Yeah.
Good to be with you.
It's great to have you here. Thank you for being here in person. Let's start right there. President Trump threatening to impose steep tariffs against some of America's closest European and NATO allies. The leaders of Denmark and Greenland say bluntly, Greenland is not for sale.
They're going to be looking at you like the Texans are currently looking at CJ Stroud right now, like this. The Texans defense players looking at CJ Stroud on the plane back to Houston. Yeah, that's it. That's what's going on. That's how I looked at Dick Dermott. Yeah, you get the point. All right, back over here.
What makes President Trump think it is?
Kristen, if we look for years, for over
This
a
guy's such a
century,
dumbass.
American presidents have wanted to acquire Greenland, and what we can see is
everybody else wants to do it. Why can't we do it?
To the U.S. national security, we're building the Golden Dome, the missile system, and look, President Trump is being strategic. He's looking beyond this year. He's looking beyond next year to what could happen for a battle in the Arctic. We are not going to outsource our national security. We are not going to outsource our hemispheric security to other countries. In Trump 1.0, President Trump told the Europeans...
We have acquired Greenland. It's in NATO. Exactly. Have you not noticed that we have more military bases around the world than anybody else, than any other country? We have military bases all throughout Europe. We have military bases in the Middle East. Name one European military base in the United States as an exchange. There's not. Is there a Middle Eastern military base in the United States? No. Okay, we're doing the training for what is it, Qatar or whatever, in Ohio or something. Like, that's like the one time. Like, we own the fucking, like, the United States is more than Mamdani in New York City. Like, we have more presence around the world than just the proper 48. Like, it is unbelievable how spread out the United States actually is. The United States military is.
Do not.
And on each one of those bases, on each one of those military bases all around the world, it looks and acts like a small part, like a piece of the United States. They got McDonald's, they do everything like in American dollars. You have your stores and your capitalism and your consumerism, everything that you can get, everything that you can order. You could buy your Ford Mustang. You can buy a car while you're out there, like on the base. Like, they have that shit. Like, it is a small part of American culture in each military base. So stop trying to tell me all this stupid shit that we need it for national security. We have military bases all around the fucking world, man.
Build Nord Stream 2. Do not rely on Russian oil. And guess what, Kristen? Guess what is funding Russia's efforts against Ukraine? European purchases of Russian oil. So America, has to be in control here.
I want to delve in.
Bro, they've always purchased Russian oil. They need Russian oil and gas to live.
Into everything that you said, but
If they don't get it, they freeze over in like negative 20-degree weather and die.
I want to ask you big picture.
Okay, now we're the white boy from yesterday. He became woke, is basically in the military. Japan itself is an American military base.
Is this a negotiating tactic, Mr. Secretary, or is President Trump serious about annexing Greenland?
President Trump strongly believes that we cannot outsource our security because, Kristen, let me tell you what will happen, and it might not be next year, might not be in 5 years, but down the road, this fight for the Arctic is real. We would keep our NATO our NATO guarantees.
I'm sorry, hold on. What did he just say? The Arctic is real.
Kristen, let me tell you what will happen, and it might not be next year, might not be in 5 years, but down the road, this fight for the Arctic is real. We would keep our NATO.
He's not saying is real. He's saying the Arctic is real. So that's Antarctica. Is the Arctic in the south or the north? The Arctic Ocean's in the north, right? The North Pole. Yeah, Arctic's north. Yeah, okay. So he's saying the Arctic is real. Antarctica and then Arctica. Got it. Yeah, makes sense. So he's saying the Arctic is real, as in we need this piece of land to be a U.S. military base, another unsinkable aircraft carrier. Because you know what's cheaper than actually building an aircraft carrier? It's just taking over a piece of land and using it as the unsinkable aircraft carrier. And then, we can just, fool society at large into believing that, this place is, independently run and, it's its own sovereign entity. Forget Santa Claus. We need oil deposits underneath the Arctic shelf. That's another thing is, I don't know how much oil and, rare earth minerals and all that stuff are in Greenland. But, I'm sure there's something there that we could use. But yeah, same thing with Israel, there's a lot of like gas and oil, oil and stuff over there in that region, that we need to control. We need a, strong foothold, in the area in order to be able to implement our will upon those in the region. This just gives the game away. He just called it an Arctic Israel, and then he stumbles on his words. Just listen to the way he says it.
Kristen, let me tell you what'll happen, and it might not be next year, might not be in 5 years, but down the road, this fight for the Arctic is real. We would keep our NATO, our NATO guarantees, and if there were an attack on Greenland from Russia,
I don't think he's saying is real. I think he's saying Israel.
There's some other area, we would get dragged in. So better now, peace through strength, make it part of the United States, and there will not be a conflict because the United States right now, we are the hottest country in the world. We are the strongest country in the world. The Europeans project weakness. The U.S. projects strength.
But just very quickly, is
just
this a negotiating tactic,
Trump
Mr.
lines.
Secretary? Is the goal to get a deal to have enhanced security in Greenland, for example?
The president believes that enhanced security is not possible without Greenland being part of the U.S.
Okay, let me press you on what you have said are national security concerns, particularly
under Biden. We expanded our ocean borders and up above Alaska. Looks like a Buster sword.
Pressing threats on Greenland's security from Russia or China. The Danish foreign minister says there hasn't been a Chinese.
And that's the other thing is they're like, oh, we need to keep an eye on Russia. Like, how far away is Alaska from Russia? Not very far. Why did we acquire Alaska? Oh, to keep an eye on Russia. So, like, what are you telling me here with Greenland? 2 miles. They're encroaching on us so fast. Oh my God.
In Greenland for a decade. What evidence do you have that this is a pressing threat?
Well, first of all, Kristen, we have.
Why would they build their country right next to ours?
And again, President Trump is being strategic here. What evidence was there that the Russians were going into Crimea? What evidence was it? Well, actually, there was a lot of evidence that the Russians were going to go into Ukraine, and Joe Biden said, well, just take a little bit of it. But what we know is that the U.S.
Is that what he said?
Can only be defended if it is part of the U.S., and it will not need to be defended if it is part of the U.S. The president is trying to avoid a conflict.
You bring up Crimea.
I think the evidence was back in 2014. Yeah, exactly. When the whole Ukraine thing started. That was actually it's probably 2012.
Have heard has not taken.
The 2014 is when it officially started.
If the United States were to take Greenland by force, how would that be different than Russia's annexation of Crimea?
Look, I believe that the Europeans will understand that this is best for Greenland, best for Europe, and best for the United States.
So, but military action is still on the table?
I haven't spoken with the president on that. And again, I believe that the Europeans will understand that the best outcome is for the U.S. to maintain or receive control of Greenland.
Well, so far what we've heard and seen from the Europeans is alarm and outrage. In fact, they're, as you know, holding an emergency meeting today. And part of the issues, the president has already reached a trade deal with the EU. How can countries have confidence in trade deals moving forward if President Trump is prepared to blow them up?
Well, first of all, the trade deal hasn't been finalized, and an emergency action can be very different from another trade deal. We're in a very good equilibrium right now with China, but if China did something to upset that balance, I think the president would be willing to act. Same thing with India. We were working on a trade deal with India, but the president, unlike the Europeans, started charging the Europeans 25% for buying Russian oil. So the president leverages his emergency powers to do this.
I hear you saying that the deal hasn't been finalized, and yet it was moving toward finalization. Doesn't it undercut the United States' word by threatening these steep new tariffs?
I think it does not. What it does is it enhances United States security. And again, we have seen the Europeans are unable to push back against Russia. The U.S. is this war that never would have started in Ukraine.
Only we can save the world, right?
We are going to settle it, but it wouldn't have started. And what President Trump is trying to do is prevent a taking or
this guy sucks at his job
in Greenland in the future.
He's absolutely horrible at his job.
Why always live in the moment?
Okay, let's talk about.
He's a terrible liar.
Strategic. The United States has a base in Greenland. I've been talking to lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
We already have a base in Greenland when we moved in.
To beef up its
we've had that actually.
As is needed in Greenland. Why not take that route? Why is it necessary to take over and annex all of Greenland, something that 85% of people living in Greenland oppose?
Well, again, and let's look back. Denmark has a terrible history with Greenlanders. There was forced sterilizations up until the 80s or the 90s. So all of a sudden, now that the U.S. has expressed an interest, there is this new interest. And again, the United States needs to be in control to prevent a war, and that we do not want to get dragged into someone else's war.
Well, but this is about the United States' relationship with its allies, NATO allies, again, reacting with alarm. They're warning that this move to annex Greenland could, in fact, destroy NATO. So let me just put this to you bluntly. Is Greenland or NATO more essential to the United States' national security?
Well, Chris, that's obviously a false choice. That's a
not from the perspective of European leaders.
The European leaders will come around and they will understand that they need to be under the U.S. security umbrella. What would happen in Ukraine that if the U.S. pulled its support out? The whole thing would collapse. That the U.S., Kristen, to be clear, since 1980, the U.S. has...
It kind of makes it clear that that's our proxy war then, huh?
Spent U.S. military spending versus NATO military spending, we have spent $22 trillion more dollars than the Europeans have.
That's kind of crazy because that's close to what our national debt is.
We are peace through strength. And the Europeans now are only trying to play catch up. And that is only through President Trump. President Trump believes in NATO, but he does not believe in the American people being dragged in.
Well, in terms of the cost that has been paid, Denmark has stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States, including after 9/11. In fact, it lost more soldiers per capita in Afghanistan than any other NATO nation. Apart from the United States itself, Mr. Secretary, does President Trump want the United States to remain a part of NATO?
Of course, we're going to remain a part of NATO, but what President Trump does not want is for a war to start and the U.S. get dragged in. Again, we are not going to outsource our Western Hemispheric security to others.
Let me ask you.
A war to start in the U.S. to get dragged in?
That's the president, as you well know.
Every fucking war that's been started recently, like in the last few decades, have been because it was either a proxy war by the United States or because we wanted it to start. What the fuck are you talking about?
To impose previous tariffs without going to Congress by declaring national emergencies. It's an issue before the Supreme Court right now. We're all awaiting the High Court's decision. What is the national emergency that justifies these new slate of tariffs?
The national emergency is avoiding a national emergency. That it is a strategic decision by the president. This is a geopolitical decision, and he is able to use the economic might of the U.S. to avoid a hot war. So why wouldn't we do that? You know, same thing. That what if the we had a national emergency coming with these gigantic trade balances that we had with the rest of the world. I've been in financial...
The national emergency is avoiding the national emergency. So, yeah.
markets for 30 or 45 years. Much better to be strategic, avoid the emergency.
You're saying it's a national emergency, but you're also saying it's a threat that's years away. How can both be true, Mr. Secretary?
Because you are avoiding creating the emergency, Kristen. What if...
We're using Israel's strategy here of like the strike first policy, rather than allowing the enemy to build themselves up. We have to strike first in order to prevent that. That way we can prevent war from breaking out. So in order to prevent war from breaking out, we must start the war ourselves and strike, while the iron's hot, basically, to prevent us from having to strike first, which is redundant.
Great financial crisis, someone had raised their hand in 2005, 2006 and said, stop with subprime mortgages. But no one did. President Trump is raising his hand, and that is preventing the emergency.
Do you think the Supreme Court will agree with that rationale, Mr. Secretary?
I believe that it is very unlikely that the Supreme Court will overrule a president's signature economic policy. They did not overrule Obamacare. I believe that the Supreme Court does not want to create chaos. We have set, as you said earlier, we have set these trade deals, and it is very good for the United States. We are balancing our trade deficit. You look, Europe is being overrun with Chinese goods. There is now an emergency in Europe. There's going to be an economic emergency. The Europeans will follow us. So President Trump is...
There's Labubu's all over Europe, man. Have you seen the place?
Preempting this, if we go back to emergencies, he put a fentanyl tariff, Mexico, Canada, China. Guess what's happened to fentanyl deaths? If that's an emergency, I don't know what. October 8th, when the Chinese threatened to put rare earth export controls in the entire world, President Trump threatened 100% tariff. And the Chinese came to the table, and we negotiated on behalf of the whole world.
All right, let me move to the Federal Reserve. I want to ask you about the revelations this week that the Department of Justice is investigating Jerome Powell and the Fed for allegedly going over budget in the Fed building renovations. Chairman Powell responded. He fired back at this. I want to play a little bit and get your reaction on the other side.
This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation.
Is President Trump committed to the independence of the Federal Reserve, Mr. Secretary?
Of course he's committed to the independence of the Federal Reserve, but independence does not mean no oversight.
But doesn't this undercut the independence of the Federal Reserve, that the Justice Department is investigating renovations? There are renovations at the White House.
The renovations at the White House are not the $700 million, more than $1 billion, $1.5 billion, the over budget, Kristen. And the White House...
What? Hold on, what?
Justice Department is investigating renovations. There are renovations at the White House.
The renovations at the White House are not the $700 million, more than $1 billion, $1.5 billion.
How do you go from 700 million to 1.5 billion? That's like double. That's more than double, man. What, you just fucking making up numbers or what?
The over budget, Kristen. And the White House, that is being paid for with private funds. If I want to...
Oh, so you're telling me he should just get, sponsored by Microsoft and Amazon and, Elon and everybody else to sign up and do the upgrades to the federal building.
Buying a chair for my office at Treasury, that is an appropriation. Just to understand, the Federal Reserve has magic money. They print their own money. So when you have no oversight, why not?
They print their own money.
Listen, I have called since last summer for the Fed to do its own internal investigation, and that has not been heeded. Not been heeded. And again, I don't know about you. When I receive if I were to receive inquiries from the Justice Department, I would answer them. They went unanswered.
Well, let me ask you, because Axios reported that you were not happy about DOJ's investigation, that you told President Trump as much. Axios writes, quote, a perturbed Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told President Trump late Sunday that the federal investigation into the Federal Reserve Chair made a mess and could be bad for financial markets. That's according to two sources familiar with the call. Is that accurate?
Well, you know what, Kristen? I'm not going to discuss my conversations with the president, but if I said that, I was wrong. Financial markets, stock market went up, bond yields went down, so the markets are the ultimate arbiter. So the markets are the ultimate arbiter over whether the Fed's independence is being impugned, and bond yields went down. I can tell you, we had two of the best bond auctions that we have had in months for U.S. Treasuries, so the market is looking beyond this. And again, maybe the market wants some transparency from the Fed.
One final question for you, Mr. Secretary. Some Republican senators, as you know, are threatening to block the president's nominees over the Justice Department's investigation. Do you think the investigation needs to be dropped in order for the Senate to confirm the president's next pick to run the Fed?
I think that will be up to the senators.
But are you worried that they'll block the president's pick for the Fed?
I am not. I think we have four great candidates. I think that they will be quite happy with either of the four. I think we will move forward. I believe that we will probably be hearing from the Banking Committee soon on what they would like to see. And again, that supervision and bringing in some sunlight does not mean coercion.
All right. Thank you so much, Secretary Bessent, for being here to respond to all of the breaking developments overnight. We really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Just a bunch of useless ass shit.
To see you, and when we come back, finding common ground. Our bipartisan.
Oh, go away. All right. Yeah, while we're still on the subject of Greenland, I guess. Let me see. I got that. Yeah, ending NATO.
So President Trump is doubling down on taking Greenland and just imposed tariffs on 7 European nations after they voiced their support of Denmark and Greenland's sovereignty. Now, Russia is openly celebrating this unprecedented rift in the NATO alliance, and a Republican senator referred to this move as, quote, beyond stupid. Still, U.S. officials just today seem to be taking the stance, what is Europe even going to do about it? Guess we'll see. Now, President Trump posted to Truth Social yesterday that he would be charging a 10% tariff starting in February on goods from 8 European nations because of their opposition to American control of Greenland. He listed NATO allies, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland that would all face the tariff, and it would rise from 10 to 25% on June 1st if no deal was in place for the complete and total purchase of Greenland by the United States, saying, quote, the United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and or any of these countries that have put so much at risk despite all that we have done for them. Now, a few key notes here. First off, this caught Denmark off guard. The Foreign Minister Rasmussen said, quote, the president's statement comes as a surprise because earlier this week we had a constructive meeting with Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio. The purpose of the increased military presence in Greenland, to which the president refers, is to enhance security in the Arctic. Now, notably, the president seems to have moved a little bit away from using military force to take Greenland, although Secretary Bessent here in a minute is going to, remind us that that is not actually off the table. When it comes to purchasing Greenland, Denmark opposes that, Greenland opposes that, and the American people oppose that. In fact, in a recent poll, only 13% of Americans supported the idea of buying Greenland. So there is very little to no support for even pursuing that course of action. And the way that it's going right now risks a major long-term divide in the NATO alliance. In fact, that question came up to kind of the administration person that faced these questions in the news today was Treasury Secretary Bessent, and he was asked directly, is Greenland more important than NATO to U.S. national security?
So let me just put this to you
I'm
bluntly.
gonna buy it anyway.
Or NATO more essential to the United States
Yeah,
national
just watch
security?
Well, Chris,
like he
that's
watched it
obviously
too.
a false choice. That's a
Not from the perspective of European leaders.
The European leaders will come around and they will understand
They will
that
come
they
around.
need to be under the U.S. security umbrella. What would happen in Ukraine that if the U.S. pulled its support out? The whole thing would collapse. That the U.S., Kristen, to be clear, Since 1980, the U.S. has spent U.S. military spending versus NATO military
He also
spending.
said the U.S. military umbrella.
$1 trillion more dollars than the Europeans have. That we are peace through strength. And the Europeans now are only trying to play catch up. And that is only through President Trump. President Trump believes in NATO, but he does not believe in the American people being dragged in.
There's a lot to unpack there, to be fair. The whole idea that Europe will come around, it feels weird, like there's something going on here that we're just going to keep pushing and keep pushing. And don't worry, they'll finally
they'll never turn on us
at some point and give up this territory. The idea of the U.S. pulling support from Ukraine, I mean, we essentially have for about a year at this point. Very, very minimal U.S. support to Ukraine. So I'm not sure that that's the best comparison for the secretary there, but we've got more from him here in a second. Turning to the European response, a joint statement was issued by all of the countries that now have tariffs on them or will have tariffs here in a couple weeks. They said the countries remain committed to strengthening Arctic security and are prepared to engage in dialogue grounded in respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. Quote, tariff threats undermine transatlantic relationships and risk a dangerous downward spiral. We will continue to stand united and coordinated in our response. We are committed to upholding our sovereignty. Look, if we can pull a bit of positive news out of all of this, Europe is pretty united. I wish we could be united with them, and they weren't uniting because of stuff we were doing, talking about taking over territory. French President Emmanuel Macron said, quote, no intimidation or threat will influence us, neither in Ukraine nor in Greenland, nor anywhere else in the world where we are confronted with such situations. Tariff threats are unacceptable and have no place in this context. Europeans will respond in a united and coordinated manner should they be confirmed. We will ensure that European sovereignty is upheld. That comparison there, the United States into Greenland as Russia is into Ukraine, has been made more than once now by our European allies. I want to try to stress how crazy it is that we're at this point, that they're looking at something that we're trying to do, saying, we didn't like it in Ukraine, we're not going to like it when you do the same thing. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said, quote, applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong. We, of course, will be pursuing this directly with the U.S. administration. Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, said, quote, Starmer's U.S. policy lies in tatters. Trump is now punishing the UK and NATO allies for doing the right thing. It's time for the Prime Minister to stand firm against the bully in the White House and work with European and Commonwealth allies to make him back down from this reckless plan. As we're going through all this, I want you to keep back in mind this is a self-inflicted wound. There's no reason. We talked in a previous video, the national security debate seems to be the one that this administration is going with. It doesn't actually hold a lot of water. The recent national security strategy that was just released a few months ago doesn't mention Greenland. Like, if it is, it mentions the Arctic, doesn't mention Greenland. So if Greenland really genuinely is the most important thing in terms
need
of
the
US
Arctic
national security,
Israel
to overshadow longstanding NATO alliances, it just popped up, like in the matter of the last couple weeks, or somehow didn't make it in to our critical national security.
We have the Caribbean
documents.
Israel.
That doesn't even hold water because Denmark and Greenland over and again have said, what do you want? Like, you can build more bases, you can put more troops.
Which is Puerto Rico.
We can do more here. That request hasn't been made by the United States in over 20 years. So
we have the Pacific Israel, which is Hawaii.
Water. Sweden's prime minister. So again, what's happening here?
And all those other little islands that we
as awful as this
consider
sounds,
American citizens, but they can't do much else.
Greenland, and it is not deeper than that. That actually lines up with the actions we're taking, because again, the national security argument doesn't really hold water. That we would upset all. You want to talk about the Arctic? Like, yes, the United States is going to be contesting.
This is what I wanted to see: a map of the Arctic Ocean. Yeah, Greenland's like closer to is Russia. Like, we're already close to Russia. We own Alaska. What do we need Greenland for? It's to take over Europe? Trump wants to take over Europe. He wants to invade Europe. We're the Nazis. Yeah.
the Arctic with China and Russia. Have you looked at a map and seen what other countries have access to the Arctic? Quick hint, a bunch of them are NATO. They're great allies of ours. So are we really going to burn down that bridge to try? You see what I'm saying? It doesn't
burn down NATO and
Sweden's
make it
Prime Minister
the United
said,
States
quote, we will not let ourselves
national
be
alliance.
blackmailed. That blackmailed term was brought up over and over again by European leaders in recent days.
The United Nations
He says, only
of
Denmark
America.
and Greenland decide on issues concerning Denmark and Greenland. I will always stand up for my country and for our allied
We would
neighbors.
almost be as big
This
as
is
Russia's
an EU
coast.
issue that affects many more countries than those now being singled out. Sweden is now having intensive discussions with other European Union countries, Norway and the United Kingdom, for a coordinated response. Denmark's Prime
imperial
Minister said, quote,
ambitions
if the United States
of a
decides
dictator.
to militarily attack another NATO country, then everything would stop. That includes NATO and therefore Second War security. And when you get into the use of military force here, I can understand the argument of course that's not going to happen. That's absurd. That's not really in the cards at all. But there's a couple notes here that I think are worth mentioning. Democratic Senator
Europe
Chris
would only have Nordic countries to depend on with Sweden and Norway. Well, maybe just Norway. Yeah.
said, quote, when the most powerful military nation on earth threatens your territory through its president over and over again, you start to take it seriously.
What
Look, let's be
what
honest.
country in
We're
Europe
hearing
would
this type of
individually be able to
language
put up a
from
fight
China
against the
or
United States
Russia.
military?
We would be assuming that they are planning on using military force. It is ridiculous. I don't think it should be in the cards at all, but seemingly it is. In fact, let's jump to that clip here real quick. Scott Bessent was asked again, this seemingly is against the will of the people of Greenland and Denmark, taking it, buying it, let alone military force. And they ask, how is this different if we do so than, Russia taking over Crimea?
As far as I have heard, has not taken military force off the table. If the United States were to take Greenland by force, how would that be different than Russia's?
France does have that mini sun generator.
I believe that the Europeans will understand that this is best for Greenland, best for Europe, and best for the United States.
So, but military action is still on the table?
I haven't spoken with the president on that. And again, I believe that the Europeans will understand that the best outcome is for the U.S. to maintain or receive control of Greenland.
That was a tough clip to watch, but how about this for an easy answer? When an administration official is asked, are we actually going to be using military force against some of our closest allies around the world? Here's one. I'll just, we can write this down and send this over to the administration. How about this? Yeah, of course, military action's off the table. These are some of our closest allies, and I'm sure we'll find some sort of workable solution here. Why are we not taking military action off the table with our NATO partners? That is ridiculous. It is absurd.
Wait, when are these military bros going to realize that we are the bad guy?
That conversation is even happening.
I think it's easier to understand what this administration is trying to do when you first identify that.
Quote, China and Russia must be having a field day. They are the ones who benefit from divisions among allies. If Greenland's security is at risk, we can address this inside of NATO. Tariffs risk making Europe and the United States poorer and undermine our shared prosperity. We also cannot let our dispute distract us from our core task of helping end Russia's war against Ukraine. Now, Russia is openly celebrating this. Like, they cannot believe what they're seeing. Dmitry Medvedev said, quote, the U.S. is preparing to attack Greenland, choosing the island itself rather than some kind of Atlantic solidarity. The impudent Europeans will be punished with tariffs for their defense within NATO. And then Kirill Dmitriev, who is running part of the negotiations with Steve Witkoff and the others on Trump's team there, he's the Russian representative, called this the collapse of the trade.
My thing is, do they think the military won't still side with the federal government?
Transatlantic Union.
I don't know.
Genuinely, they can't believe how lucky they are that this is just happening. They're just sitting there.
At what point is the military going to coup Trump, or would they ever?
On our own. Now, one aspect that we haven't really delved into is how about the people of Greenland? All right, there have been pretty significant protests in that country in recent days. From what I can tell, we've got 13% of Americans that are on board with buying Greenland. I'm not sure that it's even to that point in Greenland wanting to be a part of the United States. But either way, here's a quick clip showing some of those protests and talking with citizens of Greenland about how they feel about this.
It's very clear that we want our own country for ourselves, and we won't receive anything from Trump no matter what.
We have always welcomed collaboration with the outside world and with the U.S., and now we are talked about being occupied or bought. It is unacceptable, and it affects the people of Greenland. As you can see today, it has a lot of resonance with them. They want to show their disgust with this.
85% of Greenlanders oppose joining the
pushback
U.S.
here in the United States, we're getting a little bit. Republican Senator Tom Tillis. Again, all of this is coming out on the weekend, so I would expect we're going to hear more from our lawmakers come Tuesday, I guess, when the work week begins after the long weekend. Republican Senator Tom Tillis pretty quickly jumped on it, though, saying, quote, "This response to our own allies for sending a small number of troops to Greenland for training is bad for America, bad for American businesses, and bad for America's allies. It's great for Putin, Xi, and other adversaries who want to see NATO divided. The fact that a small handful of advisors are actively pushing for coercive action to seize territory of an ally is beyond stupid." And I think The Economist did a good job in an article yesterday talking about exactly what's at stake here and how bad this is. They have an article I'll have linked below titled, "America's Hunger for Greenland is Tearing NATO Apart. Trump could gain an island and lose a continent." They say, quote, "If America were to absorb Greenland..."
It's okay, because, once we gain the island, then we can go gain the continent, too, because, now we're encroaching on that territory as well.
Fait accompli or force, the resulting crisis would...
Do they not see what I'm seeing here?
The alliance's mutual defense clause. Mr. Trump has frequently cast doubt on it. European faith now hangs by a thread. If he were willing to dismember one European country, why would he come to the aid of another being dismembered by Russia? Seems pretty valid to me. They say European governments...
I think Trump's strategy, and, if you're like a Democrat or like a blue MAGA person, you would believe that Trump is aligning with Russia's ambitions, right? As in, being an ally to Russia, right? That's not the case. That's not what it is to from what I'm seeing. My understanding from what I'm seeing here is Trump wants to be the imperial force of acquiring land and bringing it directly under the umbrella of the United States. Not just being an alliance, not just being an ally, but, doing the Nazi Germany expansion of obtaining territories through force and continuing that imperial expansion outwards as much as possible. Venezuela, Greenland, what comes next? We already have a foothold in Ukraine and Israel. We have all these other, small military bases all around the world to back up, that ambition. Taiwan. Gavin Newsom would totally be okay with the territory gained by Trump's ambition. Yeah. The Roman Empire didn't have aircraft carriers or air powerful to defend its borders. Yeah. And so we have, you could say that we're spread out, but these are all strategic locations, or at least some of them are. But acquiring entire countries, and using that to build our bases there, build even larger bases, and use them whenever we want. As as seen with Puerto Rico, we use Puerto Rico as a launching spot. What's that island that's just south of India, that we also use as a launching spot for our B-2 bombers? We have all these locations that are not too far from what? Yeah, there's an island. I forget what's the island. B-2 bomber island, Indian Ocean. Diego Garcia. Yeah. We moved him to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean before we bombed Iran. That's a major threat to everybody in the region. It just I see the imperial ambition. I don't know how clear that is to everybody else, but it should be.
Dark choice. Some would argue that Greenland is too,
because taking Greenland means that we get even closer to Europe, and then we can just slowly just start taking Europe too.
too small and unimportant to warrant.
And then it's not that we're aligned with Russia in wanting to take Europe. It's that this is still a war for who is the most powerful nation in the world, and that's a competition with Russia. Yes, Europe might be divvied up, but if we get there first, we win, right? If we could just acquire Germany, then that would make it all perfect. It would make it perfectly make sense to a lot of people. He idolizes William McKinley. I don't know who that is. Who's Bill McKinley? 25th president. What did he do? Acquiring territories like the Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico. Oh, expansion. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. I mean, we already got the Philippines. I mean, the Filipinos rebelled against the Spaniards, and they were like, "Yay!" We won, and we were like, "All right, we're here to help." And they were like, "Oh, we don't need your help." No, you don't understand. We're here to help. That was the liberation of the Philippines.
Collapsing transatlantic ties. Others would be concerned that a rupture could prompt Russia to attack or at least probe European defenses. They do say there is an option here for Europe to push back. Europeans could, they say, for instance, resort to economic punishment through sanctions and tariffs. Again, just to register where we are, we're talking about the U.S. and the European Union getting into a trade war over ownership of Greenland. What's happening here, guys? What are we doing?
I know what we're doing.
Have we really pursued all means to ensure Arctic security by working with our Danish and our Danish partners and our partners in Greenland? You sure? Because I feel like that conversation hasn't really been had at all. In fact, the Danes are saying, "What's going on? We were talking about this. Why are we taking all of a sudden these aggressive measures?" It is self-inflicted gunshot wounds here, and it's hard to understand why. It is. Again,
Eurasia will soon be on its mass outside of the U.S.'s control.
What Trump does, and I would argue that it's a bad negotiating tactic, because even if everything works out perfectly well, a week, 2 weeks, a month from now, look at what position we're putting our allies into, wondering if we'll actually stand by them against Russia, having Russia look at actions taken by the United States, going, "This is great."
Oh, be its own mass, yeah.
The U.S. is not going to stand with their allies, and the allies are not going to stand with the United States if it continues down this route, which I think is something.
Yeah, and if they don't stand with the United States, then we go in there by force.
Voices I'm hearing here about, we'll take Greenland, kind of the idea that Scott Besson presents there of what is Europe even going to do about it? They're going to come around. Don't worry, we got this. The idea
and
that
if they don't,
everyone around the world is fully dependent on the United States, and there's no reciprocity there at all. Now, yes, the United States provides the majority of firepower when it comes to NATO, and we do provide a security blanket to a number of countries all around the world, no doubt. There's no debating that. But we also receive a lot of intelligence from allies abroad. We're able to base out of their countries, so we actually have the ability to reach far-off lands to conduct security operations or carry out strikes against terrorist leaders. If we just shut all of that off, the U.S. military loses a significant amount of our capabilities. We are who we are today alongside our allies. When we close that door,
we have
the US
Israel.
Military does not look capability-wise like it did the day prior. Now,
what if we just let Israel go crazy?
10% less effective, 40% less effective, but we should
on Europe.
That. Like, if we just decide to shut off all these allies and they no longer want to work with the United States because we're not viewed as a trustworthy ally, or they don't want us in their
You know how many double agents like the Mossad has in Europe?
Immediate impact on our ability to defend ourselves. Alliances can be messy. Was it Winston Churchill once said?
There are representatives to the Eurasian continent. Exactly.
It's never going to be perfect. This isn't perfect. It's embarrassing that we're in this situation and frustrating that it seems like we keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper. In terms of what to watch for,
I know what we're doing.
A little bit of optimism. We should see some sort of European response. It sounds like a bunch of foreign ministers are meeting here in the next couple days, talking about what they're going to do in response to this. And then again, U.S. lawmakers should be back here in a couple days, taking the weekend off, watching some football. I don't know, but maybe we will actually get some pressure. I mean, what this looks like is that
come on, centrists get disillusioned enough to be a true comrade in
tariffs on some of our closest historical allies.
That's the thing. When centrists get disillusioned, they just become more centrist.
An argument that fits this situation better than that. And that's not how we should be conducting foreign policy. That's not how we should be setting up
just grasping at like ideas
abroad. So hopefully we get some lawmakers back in next week that find
some radical
way to, for once, maybe ever, actually push back on this for, again, as Tilla said, the good of the American people, the good of American businesses, and the good of American allies. But that's all we got for now.
What are the comments?
Thanks for watching.
Hold on. Top comments. Give me the top comments. Top comments. How is this even real life? The U.S. is putting a tariff on Denmark for stationing troops within its own country. The president. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got radical centrists into the comments too, man. Remember when Trump told Zelensky in the White House, "You're gambling with World War III." The irony. Oh, speaking of, I think TYT is finally realizing the grift to the center isn't working out for them. Good. Wake me up. I want to wake up from this. For someone who says he isn't a useful idiot for Russia, he sure does some usefully idiotic shit for Russia. And that's not what it is. That's not what it is, though. You're looking at it from the blue MAGA perspective. You got the blue MAGA lenses on, my guy. Ugh. All right. Who was it? Who was on this week that I needed to look
President
at?
Trump appears to have dialed back, at least for now, his threats to send the military into Minneapolis. But the Justice Department is turning up the heat on the governor and the mayor. This week starts right now. After a week of escalating tensions, President Trump says he still may invoke the Insurrection Act, but not now.
If I needed it, I'd use it. I don't think there's any reason right now to use it.
Officials in Minnesota call for calm after another shooting.
This is not the America we want. This is not the Minnesota we deserve.
Federal officials are now targeting Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Fry for allegedly obstructing law enforcement. This morning, reaction from Mayor Fry and the former Republican chair of the House Homeland Security Committee. Brutal crackdown. President Trump promised protesters help is on the way. The Iranian regime cracks down.
We're going to watch it and see what the process is. We were just told no executions. I hope that's true.
President Trump turns the screws on NATO's allies in a bid
we got to save Iran, man.
Greenland.
We got to save Iran from themselves.
Security, so we're going to see what happens.
We made it very, very clear that this is not in the interest of the kingdom.
Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen joins us live. And New Jersey's new governor.
And I am incredibly honored to be your next governor.
That's another guy that I keep seeing is Van Hollen.
Before she takes office, we speak with Governor-elect Mikey Sherrill about her administration's agenda and her landslide victory in November.
From ABC News, it's This Week. Here now, Jonathan Karl.
Good morning. Welcome to This Week.
South Park guys could make a whole new Team America World Police movie. Yeah. There's a lot of content here.
This morning, we had a hard time figuring out where to start the show. The frenzy of activity emanating from the White House so far in the first weeks of 2026 has been dizzying. Just yesterday, President Trump announced a new round of tariffs on 8 of America's European allies, including the UK, France, and Germany, for sending small contingents of troops to Greenland in the wake of Trump's threat to take the territory from Denmark. He has said repeatedly the U.S. needs to acquire Greenland and has not ruled out using military force to make that happen. A Aside from threatening war over Greenland, consider some of the other things President Trump has done during the opening days of the new year. He ordered a dead-of-night special operations force to capture the president of Venezuela and declared the U.S. is now in control of the country. He said the U.S. could also take action on Cuba, Colombia, and Mexico. He told the New York Times that the only thing that can constrain him internationally is, quote, my own morality, saying, my own mind, it's the only thing that can stop me. He's threatened military action against Iran, promising Iranian protesters help is on the way. He's threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act to send active duty U.S. military to Minnesota, promising citizens, quote, the day of reckoning and retribution is coming. His Justice Department has subpoenaed Fed Chair Jerome Powell, launched criminal investigations into Democrats in Congress who urged troops not to go along with unlawful orders, searched a reporter's home, and prompted the resignation of 6 federal prosecutors in Minnesota for investigating Renee Good's wife, but not the man who shot her. And now sources tell us DOJ has opened criminal investigations into the Democratic governor of Minnesota and the Democratic mayor of Minneapolis.
Give me the mayor.
And that's where we begin with Minneapolis Mayor Jacob
Damn right,
Frye.
meet my demands.
Mayor Frye, thank you for joining us. Let me just start with that Justice Department investigation. Have you received a subpoena yet?
We have not received a subpoena. And at the same time, if the rumors are true, this is deeply concerning because this is way more important than just me. This is a very serious matter. And this whole investigation would ultimately be the product of one of the most basic foundational responsibilities that I have.
Yeah, what Trump wants.
To speak on behalf of my
pretty much.
constituents.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much what Trump wants. Yeah. Except, like, I don't know that, Putin san would be, I guess that would be Putin's son. Because, Europe, Russia has a lot invested in here. Really, I mean, I think Russia and China have worked together for so long that they just take this whole thing. But also, I think Australia would be ours. It would be Greenland, Australia, and then, I don't know about New Zealand. They're like, what the fuck, mate? But yeah, like the rest of this is like, yeah. Like China could take the rest of this. But also, Japan. Japan is our Asian Israel. That's our other Pacific Israel. Like, I would change these a little bit around. I think the United States has a lot more footprint. I thought that was South Korea. This is Japan right here. No? Pretty sure that's Japan. I don't know, man. Americans, what are maps? Asian Israel. Oh, yeah, I guess South Korea is also Asian Israel. Yeah, checks out. Yeah. That makes sense.
There are other countries where you get put away for the things.
Japan's a lot more militant, in my opinion.
Investigated for saying something that runs counter to what the federal government states.
Literally, the apartheid part.
It's not that way. Here we have a freedom of speech, and we do not negotiate those rights away.
So, if and when that subpoena comes, and we are told that investigation has been launched, will you comply with the Justice Department's demands?
Look, we have done nothing wrong. So, of course, we will comply. But at the same time, we need to be understanding how wild this is. And whether it's Senator Slotkin or Governor Walz or myself, this is not the way that we conduct ourselves in America. We are doing everything possible right now to keep people safe in our city. We have spoken out to make sure that our residents are protected and people's constitutional rights are upheld.
Complying with the laws that are being weaponized against you, yeah.
Is not illegality. In fact, that is enshrined in the charter of our city, which is our Constitution.
So Governor Walz has activated the National Guard, put them on standby just in case things got out of control. How tense are things in Minneapolis right now?
The intensity is caused by the unwanted, uninvited people that are here in the form of ICE. To give you an idea, we have about 600 police officers in total in Minneapolis, and there's somewhere in the range of 3,000 ICE agents.
Said it before, we are the insurgents of our own backyard.
Taking people off the street. They're asking for IDs and passports if you happen to look like
we are the enemy to all law enforcement.
And while certainly you see on the news the incidents that are of heightened tension, we have a whole lot of the rest of the city where there's calm. And the calm exists where you don't have ICE agents. So if you are looking to restore order and prevent chaos, there's a very straightforward antidote. And that is for ICE to leave. That is for our local police officers who, by the way, are working tirelessly, and our community.
There's what in this city? Oh, wait, what did he say?
And while certainly you see on the news the incidents that are of heightened tension, we have a whole lot of the rest of the city where there's calm. And the calm exists where you don't have ICE agents. So if you are looking to restore order and prevent
That's a joke
chaos,
on it. He says calm.
there's a very straightforward antidote. And that is for ICE to leave. That is for our local police officers who, by the way, are working tirelessly, and our community members to be in charge of keeping people safe in our city. We have had not that many shootings this year thus far, but I'll tell you, two of maybe the 4 or 5 have been ICE. And so that gives you an idea right there of who's causing
ICE doubles the violence in your city.
Here to keep people safe.
It is remarkable that in your city right now, as you have just laid out, that federal law enforcement officers outnumber local police by 5 to 1.
That's crazy.
What is your message to protesters on how they should handle that situation? Because I've heard you say several times.
Damn it! We should have listened to the politicians when they said they wanted to triple the police budgets everywhere. Fuck.
Take the bait. What is your message now to protesters?
Obviously, we need more cops.
The message hasn't changed, and at the same time, we have had tens of thousands of people in Minneapolis stand up and protest peacefully. We've got people sliding down these hills of ice to attend a protest and making sure that people would have food that are scared to go outside because they're afraid of having their families ripped apart. I think it's important to tell the whole country that this is not just about resistance here in Minneapolis. It's about love. We are showing something far more powerful and consequential here, which is love. We are standing up for one another. You've got neighbors helping neighbors. You've got people uniting and coming together in this beautiful way. And obviously, we've got these threats out there from the federal government that were literally designed to intimidate Minneapolis residents, to intimidate me. But here's the thing. We're not going to be intimidated. We've got this beautiful city full of extraordinary people. I have never been prouder to be from Minneapolis.
But let me ask you, during those incredibly emotional moments and hours after the shooting of Renee Good, you went on national television and you said to ICE, "Get the F out of Minneapolis."
And did they?
Do you regret that language? I mean, that doesn't sound like turning the temperature.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it worked.
I don't regret it at all. In the moments before I went out there to do that press conference, I learned that Kristi Noem had already jumped to a conclusion as to the ICE agent's conduct, saying that it was purely self-defense. Minutes or hours later, you had her saying that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist. If I seemed like I was angry and frustrated, I was. And part of my responsibility as mayor is to channel what the people in our city are feeling. And the people in our city were angry. They were upset. And at the same time, from the very beginning, we were saying the same thing, which is we got to keep the peace. We're not going to counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos here. Yes, we stand up. Yes, we
I'm just going to say, this peaceful resistance thing, I don't think it's working. I don't think it's working.
Protest. And we're not going to go down this route that gives them the excuse to
Start
come
parades,
in with greater numbers. They're
Start of the
looking for an
inflatables,
excuse.
honestly.
They're trying to intimidate
You're cute,
Minneapolis residents.
but
I'll tell you, I've seen tens of thousands of people remain composed to line up to get groceries to people that are scared to go
replace the
outside, to make sure
inflatables.
that people have a walk to their car on their way back home.
Replace the
from work.
inflatables
There have been
with
so
some
many beautiful
with
things
some
that have
rifles.
taken place here in Minneapolis, and I'll tell you,
You'll definitely turn a lot more heads.
January in Minneapolis. It's
cold.
It's like negative temperatures out there, but people have never felt warmer.
Legally, right? What's legal in the area?
Thank you for having me.
And joining me now is Republican Congressman Michael McCaul.
So you called it an occupation, right? I mean, it is an occupation. White people trying to join the Black Panthers. Yeah. I mean, leave it to white people to co-opt a movement that actually works. And then learning of the White Panthers, which is a Black Panther approved group. It goes back to that thing that some of these spaces aren't for you. But you're definitely welcome to create your own spaces where you can do something similar. And I think that is something that a lot of people miss. The recreation or the imitation of the Black Panthers from a white perspective, I think is necessary. I think it is, and I don't know if we've completely approached that yet with liberals and centrists in the United States, but we're getting there. Do I have anything else on ICE? Yeah, I had this guy. All right. No, I don't think I had anything. It's definitely hard because a group of white people with guns usually has bad connotations. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that yesterday, right? See a group of white people with guns, everybody gets that's just the cops, honestly. That's just the cops. Speaking of cops, Minneapolis police chief fears possible moment where it all explodes as ICE operation continues.
By now, you have no doubt seen many of the scenes from Minneapolis.
It's from today.
Immigration agents demanding proof of citizenship, even from some American citizens, protesters swarming as agents make arrests, the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE officer. This past week, we went to Minneapolis and spoke with two men at the center of the crisis, the chief of police and the head of ICE's deportation operation, both veteran law enforcement officers with two very different views of what is unfolding. Tonight, there were 3,000 ICE and Border Patrol agents in the Minneapolis area. That's nearly 5 times the number of police on this.
Earlier in the day, cops showed up to the Minneapolis protest to break up protesters from making fire pits for the cold. I guess. Windows out left and right. That shit pisses me off, man. Like, don't mess with somebody's fucking car, dude. You know how expensive shit is, man? And then, like, when you replace something on a car, like a window, like, it's not going to be the same afterwards. You're going to have issues with it rolling up and down.
Coming out from a lot of our politicians is to not trust us, which is very
automatically blames the politicians.
A lot of Americans would rather believe what they see on TikTok compared to a government agency.
You see this strategy from these fascists that always try to blame TikTok for everything, like as if what you see on social media is not true. Yeah, that instantly tells me who you are. She was told to get out by the ICE agent partner. But if you're told to move, I guess I'd move my car out of the road too. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of that's something that they. I don't know if we just saw that earlier, or if I saw that definitely somewhere else. I think I saw that somewhere else, where like people get confused from getting told by multiple officers different directions. It was something I saw the other day. But yeah, I mean, everybody's shouting directions at you. Like in that moment, doing one wrong thing is what gets you killed, and it's impossible to do every order 100% right, because that's kind of the purpose of them yelling at you, is so that you do something wrong, so they have the ability to execute you. So Facebook definitely radicalized older generations. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like Facebook definitely like radicalized like older generations with algorithms and whatnot. Now you have people of authority, people of like this, that tried to blame TikTok and say TikTok's the bad one because China bad. And it's an easy target. People can remember that TikTok is the one that is showing you all the lies and all the stuff that it's Chinese propaganda and all that stuff. Ben Shapiro's views were massive on Facebook back in the day. Yeah, it's something similar here, but now they're using the demonization of social media to try and push their agenda.
We spoke to ICE's Marcos Charles,
ICE's Executive Associate Director of Enforcement and Removal Operations. In
the conduct of your duties.
Yeah, I don't think they do. They have federal immunity, sure, but they don't have state, local law. That goes back to American policing, where you gotta have the warrior mentality. Everyone is a threat. They will arrest politicians. I wouldn't be surprised if they start arresting politicians. Trump, yeah, exactly. He's trying to make excuses for Trump. That's really what it comes down to, man. Like, and it goes, like I said, it goes back to American policing, where they've been fed the idea of warrior mentality. Everyone's out to get you. Everybody can kill you. This guy's the police chief is seeing how that's backfiring when somebody comes in and it's an occupation force, like the mayor said, an occupational force that doesn't abide by your rules. They don't abide by the same rules. It's not going to go the way that you want it to. But yeah, I mean, and they said, like, they have said that they would, like, if you get arrested, and charged with state crimes, ICE, that your federal immunity doesn't work here, right? But this is the civil war that everybody's wanted, right? The state versus the Fed. It's not state versus state; it's state versus the Fed. That's what it is. All right, where was I? Is there anything from Face the Nation that I wanted to see? Oh yeah, as long as we're still on ICE, Christy Nome. Let me see what their intro was.
I'm Margaret Brennan in Washington, and this week on Face the Nation, tensions continue to boil over in the ice-laden city of Minneapolis, while the president's pursuit of Greenland prompts backlash from allies here
city?
and in Europe. Despite temperatures in the low teens, protesters in support of and in opposition to ICE, as well as agents themselves, took to the streets of Minneapolis again Saturday, as the divide between local officials and federal ones got even wider, and America's views of President Trump's immigration policies erode as he hits the 1 year in office mark. We'll talk exclusively with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey. Then, with the volatile situation in Iran diffused for the moment, President Trump turns to his next international.
It's diffused for the moment. The other place said that it was on the edge of blowing up.
Target, Greenland. As U.S. officials tried to calm European
U.S.
allies
media can
about
never
his
get their
plans,
story
Mr.
unified,
Trump
I guess.
announced new tariffs on imports from Denmark and 6 other NATO members if they don't support a deal for the, quote, complete and total purchase of Greenland. The top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, and the head of a bipartisan congressional group supporting NATO, Republican Mike Turner, will both be here. It's all just ahead on Face the Nation.
Fantastic. I guess give me Kristi Noem. Maybe. I'm gonna hate myself later.
We go now to Castlewood, South Dakota, and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Good morning to you, Madam Secretary.
Good morning.
Well, DHS calls this the largest operation in its history, nearly 3,000 federal agents out there. Is this an open-ended deployment, or is there a metric for success that ends it?
Well, I think every day we get a murderer off the streets of Minneapolis, the public is safer, and President Trump is keeping his promise to the American people. And we literally have arrested and detained thousands of illegal criminals in Minnesota since President Trump came back into the White House. And I've never met a family that ever said, oh, I wish you would have left that rapist free. I wish you would have left that murderer on the streets. So we're just so thankful that we have a president that's upholding the law.
And other things that people have never said.
Determined to make sure that the laws are applied equally to everyone.
According to Pew, Minnesota's population of immigrants here illegally stands at 2.2%. So how do you judge when you've gotten everyone off the streets that you say is, requiring your federal agents be there? How do you say we've had mission accomplished?
Well, we won't stop until we are sure that all the dangerous
until everyone's
people
deported,
are picked up, brought to
and
justice,
there's nobody left
and
in
then
the city.
deported back
You don't
to
have
their
a
home
number
countries.
or a date?
We wouldn't be in this situation.
No numbers,
we wouldn't
just
be in this situation
vibes.
if Joe Biden hadn't allowed our open border policies to be in place and
Joe
allowed
Biden.
up to 20 million people unvetted into this country. We have no idea how many dangerous people are here. When you have millions of people coming in that are terrorists, suspected terrorists, criminals, come from countries in the mass migration that the Biden administration facilitated.
Joe
I
Biden.
can't tell the people of Minnesota exactly how many dangerous criminals
Before
they have.
that,
I do
it was
know that they're
Obama.
extremely grateful every time we get a pedophile off the street. We arrested an individual this week that was raping children. I think those parents in Minnesota can sleep better at night knowing that that person isn't free.
Sure, but you just said millions.
Sure.
What's the breakdown of the percentage of those who you have in custody who have actually committed a criminal offense versus just the civil infraction?
Every single individual has committed a crime, but 70% of them have committed or have charges against them on violent crimes and crimes that they are charged with or have been convicted of that have come from other countries that are here illegally, first of all, and then they have committed a criminal act while they've been here or in their home countries as well.
It's not 70%.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
70% of everyone
you
you
guys
have
keep
detained
changing
has-
your percentage. You pick and choose what numbers you think work, but that is the facts, is that 70% of the people that we have detained have charges against them or have been convicted of charges.
Especially once we give them charges as we're arresting them.
And they need to be brought to justice. And we're going to keep doing that no matter how much you guys keep lying and don't tell the public the truth. It absolutely
What a
is that
piece
these
of
law
shit,
enforcement
man.
officers are out there every day doing the work to protect the American people, and they will keep doing that because they believe in enforcing the law, which is exactly what President Trump has charged them with.
Okay. Well, our reporting is that 47%, based on your agency's own numbers, 47% have
Your agency's own numbers
against them. But let's talk about the other
You're
numbers.
wrong again. Absolutely. We'll get you the correct numbers so you can use them in the future.
Well, that's from your agency. Let's talk about our numbers here at CBS. 54% of Americans think the ICE agent shooting of Renee.
Yeah, I thought this was CBS News. CBS News. Like, where's somebody called Barry right now?
Good was not justified. 60% say the Trump administration responded to the ICE agent's actions unfairly.
Yeah, there's no war. Yeah.
These numbers show you do not have the American public on your side. Does that concern you?
We hate you.
Well, the facts are that this individual weaponized her car and threatened the life of the law enforcement officer and those around him. And that is what the media needs to cover. People understand is the truth when they have the chance to hear the facts around the case. And this individual was impeding law enforcement operations for quite some time before this incident happened. It's a tragedy that this
She has the Erica Kirk stare, yeah,
in this country, and we hope there's never another situation like this before. But this officer relied on his training to defend his life and to defend those around him, and we're grateful that we're in a situation where we hope that more people don't weaponize their vehicles like this. We're seeing it happen over and over again. We've seen over 100 different vehicle weaponized and attacking law enforcement officers. I
100 different vehicle
Mayor Fry,
weaponized?
when he's on here, that he'll announce that he's going to start working with us to bring safety to the streets. If he would set up a peaceful protest zone so that these individuals can exercise their First Amendment rights and do so
We
peacefully,
need a peaceful
would love
protest
that.
zone,
Because
yeah.
then we could work together
That'll
to
fix
make sure we're
everything.
getting criminals to justice and letting people still express their First Amendment rights.
Well, you know that it is in dispute about weaponizing a car versus driving forward, but I'll put that aside.
No, it's really
Tell
not.
me about
Yeah, I remember how Republicans talked about using trucks during BLM protests. They did flybys, man. They would do flybys on protesters.
And watch the videos and see that.
Well, let me talk to you about the officer, Jonathan Ross. He was struck. He was hospitalized.
Oh, don't
CBS
say his name. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we shouldn't have people continue to dox law enforcement when they have an 8,000% increase in death threats against them. I know, but that doesn't.
Everybody knows who he is. Shut the fuck up.
He got attacked with a car that was trying to take his life, and then the people have attacked him and his family, and they are in jeopardy. And we have law enforcement officers every day who are getting death threats and getting attacked at their hotel.
Imagine if a law enforcement officer put their name on their on their uniform. That would be crazy.
Against anyone, but here CBS reported that he did have internal bleeding in
Again
the torso,
from the Charlie
but he was
Kirk people,
released
yeah.
that same day. So is he back at work? Did you give him the required 3 days of suspension?
Enjoy.
We followed the exact same protocols that we always have for years as to investigations into these situations. But
3 days of
I'm not going to talk
administrative
about his
leave?
medical records. I know that you know that in itself is his prerogative to discuss his health, but we're hopeful that all of our law enforcement officers know that they can go out and do their job, apply the law equally to everyone, and that they can do so safely, and that the media and people aren't going to attack them for standing up for what's right.
I'm asking you about your policies. I asked you if you had put him on administrative leave. This is in question because the governor of Minnesota said the only person not being investigated for the shooting of Renee Good is the federal agent who shot her.
The shooter, yeah.
Correct. That the federal agent is not being investigated in any way. Is there any review of protocol here?
We are following the exact same investigative and review process that we always have under ICE and under the Department of Homeland Security and within the administration. The exact
Didn't
same
she shoot her dog?
that the Biden administration used.
So
he
shot her own dog, right?
We haven't changed any of that. I would not listen to Governor Walz. He has a very bad track record. All this billions of dollars of fraud was stolen from people.
Billions
under
and
his
billions.
Watch. He allowed it to happen, and he also ignored the law and allowed the city of Minneapolis to burn down in 2020. He certainly isn't have good judgment in these types of situations, and I'm not going to be taking any advice from him on how we implement the law and protect people.
If the city of Minneapolis burned down, where are you then? How are you there?
I understand you saying that the Office of Professional Responsibility is doing its own probe to determine that the ICE agent violated protocol and that he was on 3 days of administrative leave because that is what is in the handbook.
The protocol and the advice and the guidance within that handbook and within our policies is being followed exactly like it has been for years.
Okay, so there is some review of his actions, is what I understand you saying there.
Margaret, there always is. Every law enforcement officer knows that. When they take the oath to step up and to protect the public and put their lives on the line, they absolutely know that everything that they do will be analyzed and investigated. But also what I don't think they realized until just recently is how the liberals and the Democrats and the media would attack them and try to ruin their lives for doing what's right. And we're seeing in Minneapolis an unprecedented fraud history going on by elected leaders and individuals in that state, but also criminal activity, and it's being allowed to happen. When we did these operations
she's annoying.
in other cities across the country, we didn't see this kind of
She's
violence.
just using like the
organized, funded protesters,
like the brain broken online MAGA red hat like terminologies.
The elected leaders and Mayor Fry.
She's using like the Facebook posters.
This kind of violence to happen.
Terminologies. She's woke scolding. Yeah, exactly.
We didn't see it in other
we will
cities,
talk to Fry about what's happening
we
in his
shouldn't
city.
have to be watching it here in Minneapolis.
But we have heard, and I'm asking you here about the security of your agents that you say you are concerned about. The local police chief said your agents are being forced into situations out in Minneapolis.
They're putting
that
themselves in
not prepared to deal
situations
with.
that they're not
And
prepared to deal with.
We looked, and the Government Accountability Office said back in 2021, most ICE agents are not trained to handle crowd control. So are you looking at expanding the training for the agents that you are putting in this situation?
Come on, Democrats really just, they're trying to give you guys a layup. Will you go for it?
They are absolutely trained for the situations that they're put in. We would never put an officer in a situation that they would be beyond their training and skill set. And so these are highly trained
if she was smart, she would go with that. She would say, "Oh, well, you know, these guys they're very well trained, but sure, everybody can use more training. Why not?" And then take that in and rather than having the Democrats using that as a talking point, just absorb it and make it a moot point. But she's not smart. She's a dumbass.
Here and in Minneapolis doing the operations they are, and frankly,
On
the
crowd
Minneapolis
control and
chief of police is
de-escalation?
not an expert. Absolutely, they are trained to that. Their specialized skill set is being utilized for where they are located and the jobs that they are doing in Minneapolis and across other cities across the country.
It's so painful.
They have an
It's so
incredible
painful to
amount
listen
of
to her
training
talk.
that is ongoing throughout their careers.
Do you want to
in
expand
crowd
that?
Control, in handling
Partisanship
enforcement
will destroy the
operations that they have.
union indeed.
Do I want to expand it based on the Minneapolis police chief's advice?
Well, some
not on his advice.
No, but
I will
some
continue
Republican
to use-
lawmakers have called
if
for
you
that.
remember,
She can't.
Well, Republican
She can't
lawmakers-
stop talking to the point where she can listen to what Margaret's trying to tell her, and she just wants to be right, like 100% of the time.
and Democrat lawmakers, they absolutely can continue to debate. That's what they're supposed to do, is work on policy and pass laws. What I know is that under the Department of Homeland Security has always been entrusted with training our federal law enforcement officers. We do it for many different agencies. We train those within the ATF, the DEA. We train those that are established across the country. We are the largest law enforcement operation and department in the government beyond the Department of War, and we're proud of that, and we've done it with excellence for years and are continuing to put the resources and people into our law enforcement officers. They need to change and to challenge these situations they're facing.
He's annoying.
But
Annoying
you've
as
described this
fuck,
situation
dude.
as unique. You've acknowledged that. I want to talk to you about some of the incidents that the public has seen. There was a U.S. citizen, Aliyah Rahman, on her way to a medical appointment out in Minneapolis. She was dragged out of her car and detained. Video of her arrest was spreading on social media in Minneapolis. This family with 6 children, with one as young as 6 months old, got kind of caught in the incident as they were driving to basketball practice. The mother, Destiny Jackson, told CBS ICE agents stopped the car, told them to leave, but the agents were in the way, and they feared that they would have happened to them what happened to Renee Good. They didn't drive off. ICE released a canister of tear gas, and the mother described giving her infant CPR. We're showing that video there. Do
What
any
the
of these tactics
fuck?
seem to you heavy-handed?
That family was caught up in that situation because of violent protesters that were impeding law enforcement
You're a
operations.
fucking
And that
psycho,
family had never
man.
been in that situation, if those protesters had been acting peacefully and law enforcement was able to do their job without being threatened.
What a soulless
And so it's
psychopath.
A terrible situation that family had to go through, and I hope it never happens again. But we need to remember that because
Puppy
the mayor
killer.
and the
Yeah, she
governor
did
have
kill her
allowed
own
this
dog
kind
and
of
a
violence
goat.
to be perpetuated
It
across
might have been a couple
Minneapolis
goats. I don't
is why
remember.
there's other
But yeah,
innocent
she has
people
no
that are
soul.
impacted throughout the city, but throughout their state as well. And it doesn't have to
this
be this
doesn't
way. They
seem
could establish
targeted.
Just a
peaceful
straight
protest zone.
psychopath.
They could enforce their laws. And if Governor Walz didn't recognize that what he is doing there is poor leadership, he wouldn't have put his National Guard on standby in order to respond. And I'm hopeful that he does recognize that he needs to start working with us. I have
Are your agents
asked him
going to
I know
comply
the
with
White
the
House has asked him to.
Sorry, with the federal order on Friday to not use chemical agents?
That federal order was a little ridiculous because that federal judge came down and told us we couldn't do what we already aren't doing. We
just
have
saw
not,
video of chemical
engaged
agents
in
being used.
We only use those chemical agents when there's violence happening and perpetuating, and you need to be able to establish law.
You just said you can't use chemical agents, and you're like, oh yeah, we're not using them. They're like, and then she says, well, you use them here, and she's like, oh yeah, well we use them there, yes.
In order to keep people safe. That's the only situation. So that judge's order.
In order to keep people safe, we must kill them.
Didn't change anything for how we're operating on the ground because it's basically telling us to do what we've already been doing.
Madam Secretary, thank you for your time this morning.
What a fucking moron. Oh yeah, the ICE agent pastor was called out during a sermon. Renee Goodfield, the "What Kind of American Are You" part of the Civil War movie. Yeah, I guess that pretty much wasn't the right kind of American. Speaking of though, protesters disrupt church for pastor's role as ICE director.
David Easterwood is a pastor here. He is also the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul.
Call him out!
Someone who claims to worship God, teaching people in this church about God, is out there overseeing ICE agents. Think about what we've experienced. The murder of Renee Good at the hands of ICE. A Venezuelan national shot by ICE. A 6-month-old baby who almost died as a result of ICE unleashing military-grade weapons on our community. How dare you claim to be a pastor of
He
God?
definitely teaches about Republican Jesus, I guarantee you.
Evil in our community.
Do you think Jesus would be understanding?
We're about worship
these folks.
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them?
No church had gathered.
Is that Don Lemon?
Which we do every Sunday, and we were interrupted by this group of protesters. Yeah. We asked them to leave, and they.
He's terrified. That dude's shaking. I saw this live on TikTok. This is wild. Don Lemons? Yeah. His eyes are like glazed over, man. It looked like a Protestant church to me. And them pupils, though. Pastor really needed that $50K over a 5-year installment. Is it over 5 years? I thought they got a $50K sign-up bonus. Oh, look. See, I'm so glad I have the Shinigami eyes Because it always it just makes it so obvious when anybody's like, "Are you crazy?" and it's like some transphobe. Every single time, man. Every single time. All right. Oh, okay, yeah, definitely give that to me. All right. Is this more of the same? Trump threatens tariffs. Yeah, we already covered
President
this.
Trump is suggesting he may impose tariffs on countries that do not back a U.S. takeover of Greenland. This as Germany deployed troops to the Arctic island, joining other countries
America's
like
raid
France,
on Venezuela
Sweden,
has
Finland,
paid
and
off, or so it seems. Trump is now signaling that he can force Caracas back into line, open the door to new energy deals on U.S. terms, and curb the influence of rival powers in the hemisphere. And while the
All right, hold on. Let me hold off on this video for a second. While we're still on Trump, I guess. Tell me about the Epstein files.
Limited redactions that did not allow them. The government is breaking the law with the Epstein files. They were supposed to release all of them. They did not. They were supposed to explain redactions. They did not. They were supposed to have limited redactions that did not allow them to redact on the basis of embarrassment or for politically exposed people. They did that. They redacted actual people who were investigated in the Epstein case, not just the victims. And this is in violation of the bipartisan law that Donald Trump signed only months ago. It's a law called the Epstein Transparency Act, and I've excerpted a few bits of it for you, where specifically they could not redact all the files. They had to release all of them by a certain day, which they missed.
So he signed the law and then didn't abide by the law that he signed.
But of the stuff we've already gotten, they've redacted more than they were supposed to. The law says that they can't redact on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, political sensitivity. Basically, they can't just say like, oh, we don't like that guy's name is coming out. They only can redact on the basis of like national security or if it's a victim. And even if they do redact, they have to explain why they did so. They have to give a summary of redactions made, including the legal basis. And they did not do that either. Not only did they make redactions that clearly in the context are not victims at all, but rather possible perpetrators. They're redacting possible perpetrators, but they also haven't explained anything they did redact. And on the DOJ website, you can see that they're just not interested in following the law here because they say they're going to redact personal information pertaining to victims, which is according to the law. Then they say other private individuals, but that, again, is not what the law says. The law makes no provision for that. So the DOJ sort of taken the law that was passed and kind of just like reinterpreted it, and even still, they're not complying with it because, as I said, they're supposed to release everything by a certain day. Here's the status of that.
Yeah, they passed.
So far, 2.4% of the total pages that are under review have been released. They say they have, and I'm not even kidding, 5 million pages of documents released.
That's insane,
They also say
man.
they have 2 million documents under review. So far, they've released 12,000. And a lot of those were entirely redacted with no explanation, right? Like, against the law, no explanation of this. But what's crazy, and like what I can't wrap my head around is, my entire life, I was led to believe Congress, like, had some power or were able to do things. They made laws and you had to follow those laws, right? That's really important to follow the laws.
Yeah, isn't that the point of Congress, is to make laws for people to follow?
We're seeing that the DOJ is really testing that here because theoretically, who would enforce the laws that Congress is, making? Probably the DOJ, the Department of Justice. What if the Department of Justice isn't following the laws? Who is going to get them in trouble? Because Pam Bondi is just flagrantly disregarding and reinterpreting some of the laws here. And there is a challenge to this in court. And the DOJ basically wrote in court that, well, actually, even if we did violate this, maybe there's no cause of action here. We aren't responsible for any of this because there was a petition of the court to appoint something called an independent monitor and special master. Specifically, this was to force them to comply with the law. This was written by a Republican and Democrat, and it says, put simply, the DOJ cannot be trusted with making mandatory disclosures under the act, and essentially they have to put someone independent in charge of this whole event. And the Department of Justice wrote in today that they don't believe there's a cause of action here by the Epstein Transparency Act. So even if there is a consequence, if a statute does not specify a consequence for noncompliance with statutory timing provisions, the federal courts will not in the ordinary course impose their own coercive sanction. So what exactly can they get in trouble with if they don't comply with this? If they just redact whatever they want, they don't provide a summary of what they redact people they shouldn't have redacted, who is going to get them in trouble? I mean, basically they're arguing to a court. They're like, well, they didn't say what's going to happen to us if we didn't comply with this. So that's kind of on them. It's actually amazing to watch the flagrantness in which they do this. It's so brazen. I want to play a clip of one of the Republicans who actually wrote this whole appointment of an independent monitor. He talks on breaking points about, what their goal is. And I just think it's worth listening to.
Pam Bondi is violating the law. She missed the December 19th deadline. She missed the deadline 15 days after that, where they had to justify redactions and give Congress a list of politicians who were involved in the Epstein files. So they missed 2 deadlines. But I'm concerned more about what they're redacting and what they're withholding than I am about these deadlines. And that's why we've asked this judge to appoint a special master. It's might makes right. They're doing this. They're disobeying the law because I think they're trying to test and see if there's any way it can be enforced.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're like half complying with the law, but specifically not with the parts that actually matter. And then they're telling the court, well, there's no cause of action to force us to actually do it. And who ultimately is going to stop them? Who's going to prosecute the government? The government won't. I mean, what are we talking about here? And what's interesting about this is that clearly not everybody is happy about this. This has actually been hugely humiliating for people who basically ran on the whole, we're going to release the Epstein files. Remember Dan Bongino?
Oh, yeah. Where's he at?
He's been humiliating himself on national TV saying like, oh, I looked at the files.
I've seen the whole file. He himself.
But also the guy who a few years ago was like, dude, we have to look into the Epstein files.
There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there.
Well, he apparently was thinking about resigning amid the Epstein fallout after the July 5th memo disaster, and then actually did resign. The announcement was a few days before the final release of the Epstein files, the latest deadline.
Well, he really thought they were going to come out,
on that day. This is his last post about it. It was a busy last day on the job. This will be my last post on my account. Tomorrow, I will return to civilian life.
He thought they were going to come out, and then we invaded Venezuela.
Thing to happen to somebody, to go into public office and be like, we're going to fight the deep state, and then leave having done nothing to fight the deep state. Literally, this guy has the cringiest post. Like, what I have learned has shocked me to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I learned. Dog, what did you learn? Tell us. If you actually know something, if you actually found something in your investigation, in the year that you investigated the government, say it. Don't go back to your podcast making millions of dollars. Why don't you actually do something about it? Or when you are back at your podcast making millions again, why not tell everybody what happened? But we're not going to see that. We're going to see him continue to suck up to this administration, of course, even though it has betrayed the very thing that he came to the government for. Now, finally, I'll just say that I have to give a special mention to the Clintons, who are trying to do their own little weaseling out of the law maneuver. Because I don't know if you guys remember, the Clintons issued this whole statement.
We need no such
protection. We don't need
protections
from the Epstein files. Just let everything out. And everyone was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. We don't care. Literally lock them all up, whoever's involved. And they said as much. Basically, they said, we need no such protection. And then Bill Clinton came out and was like, yeah, actually, we're not going to comply with that subpoena you guys issued. Because Congress was like, hey, you got to come testify. And they were like, no. We said we don't
just
need
said that.
But actually, we're not gonna show up. And that was also a bipartisan thing, by the way, subpoenaing the Clintons.
I think everyone knows by now Bill Clinton did not show up. And I think it's important to note that this subpoena was voted on in a bipartisan manner by this committee. This wasn't something that I just issued as chairman of the committee. This was
Hillary is like, I have a cabin hidden in the woods. No one will find us, Bill. You mean like nobody will find Bill in that cabin in the woods after she's done with him?
Committee in a unanimous vote.
The poster's Bill in a fucking blue dress
Of the House Oversight Committee to subpoena former President Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton's supposed to show up tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. But with respect to the former president,
who's this lady?
He did not show up today.
And so they might hold Clinton in contempt. I mean, I don't actually believe it. I will not believe anyone will face any charges for this, any problems for this ever.
I agree.
Until I see it. I have such little faith in our government, given how apparently super focused
100%
we are on
doubt.
protecting the people in these files. We're so focused on it that I don't believe for a second that Clinton, that Trump, anybody, nobody's going to get exposed. Nobody's going to get locked up. It's clear that the DOJ will break the law to make sure that they don't expose anybody, ironically, breaking the law with relation to Jeffrey Epstein, except for Jeffrey Epstein himself. That's the only guy that will face any consequences for this. Obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell is in the nice club fed now. She's not suffering as much anymore. She's running the place over there. Epstein's that who's facing accountability. It's actually crazy. So I just wanted to talk about this. I wanted to flag the fact that the DOJ is basically making the argument that there's no way, even if we didn't comply, you could ever force us to comply, which is, a crazy thing to say. But maybe we should have expected it, given that Pam Bondi has been literally running on this promise since early on. Someone found this old clip of her.
Florida ranks third nationally in calls for help for human trafficking, where young women and children are enslaved and abused. I knew we needed all hands on deck, and I'll fight to put human trafficking monsters where they belong, behind bars.
I mean, let's give it up for Pam. She has been keeping human trafficking monsters behind bars.
Hold on, what was that?
Monsters where they belong, behind bars.
I mean, let's give it up for Pam. She has been.
What does this say? Does not need to head out. We made contact with blank last night in New York. Made with blank, blank, blank. We are made to blank, and Burnell blank is confirmed to live in New York, but was not something the weekend. Have a good address for blank, but attempt was made at a residence in New York. Maxwell are being made in Boston today.
Keeping human trafficking monsters behind bars.
Yeah, man, those Epstein files are still out there. Oh yeah, this is the link.
So ICE's $50,000 incentive to join is actually $10,000 a year paid over 5 years on the contingency that you stay for those 5 years. If you look at the fine print, according to the internet, if you leave before those 5 years, you actually have to pay that money back. So if you stayed for 3 years and got $30,000 and quit, then you have to pay $30,000 back. And I just think it's interesting that it's 5 years, right? 5 years and $50,000. That's 1 year longer than Trump is allowed.
Oh, yeah, makes sense.
So when the next president comes in and then obviously cuts all of these ICE agents because of how unpopular ICE is, are we going to have like a bunch of ICE agents that owe $40,000 to the federal government because they didn't fulfill their contracts? Because that's going to happen, right? Like any president.
This is the trap. This is a trap to keep those ICE agents on board and overthrow the government.
Whoever the next president is, Republican or Democrat, they're going to have to campaign on at least reducing ICE presence. It's just, in order to get any kind of swing vote, they're going to have to do that. So when the next president fires all of these mall cop hall monitors, they're going to have to pay back $40,000 according to their contracts. Dude, ICE agents just got grifted hard, like when you think about it. So ICE is $50,000.
Agreed. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. All right, All right, it's almost 1, man. I'm tired. We'll call it here. We'll save some for sometime this week. Hopefully maybe tomorrow night. All right. Yeah. Have a good night. We'll I still have some more videos that I wanted to watch. We'll see when we can do them. Oh yeah.
Are you disappointed that the league fined you for this?
I knew, that was a fine. I understood what I was doing as far as for example, Steph, he wears the eye tape, since I know him, with stuff on it, and they always find you.
Yeah.
But I was told that if I wore that in the game, I would pull out the game. So I think that was probably the part that I was confused about, because I understood it was a fine.
Sure.
But, I ain't never seen Steph get pulled out of the game for having eye tape with writing on it.
True.
So, at the end of the day, it's bigger than me.
Yep.
The things that are going on makes people uncomfortable. Imagine how those people feel. I think that's the biggest thing. I have no affiliation, no connection to these people, other than the fact that I'm a human being. And if you have a heart and you're a human being, you can see what's going on.
Can't even say stop the genocide, man.
When I'm walking off this field, that's the type of stuff that goes through my head that I have to check myself when I'm sitting here crying about football, when there's people who are dying every single day.
Perspective and awareness.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right. Hold on. Let's check in on that. Let's check in on the genocide, I guess.
Because all this is based on a White House announcement that I read numerous times, and every time I read it, I find out something new, kind of like a book from childhood. But ultimately, what we're talking about right now is the title is the Board of Peace. Under it has 2 executive boards. One, the founding executive board, which you can see as kind of a more symbolic body to that. You had the invitations to 60 world leaders to kind of participate in that. And that is seen to be first concentrated on Gaza, but down the line, its authority might extend to seek conflict resolution elsewhere in the world. So kind of like Trump's own personal United Nations, you have to pay $1 billion to be a member for more than 3 years. You pay less, you get 3 years. But that is kind of the higher supervising body. Then you have, closer to the ground, you have the Gaza Executive Board. This is where you have 11 members who have been touted according to the White House announcement, including Turkey's foreign minister, you have Qatari official, you have an Emirati official, you have an Israeli Cypriot billionaire. And this is the body that the Israeli government said that it does not agree to its composition, that it was not consulted. And in fact, its composition is contrary to Israel's policy. The head high representative of the Gaza Strip is going to be Nikolai Mladenov. He was the special UN coordinator for the Middle East. He was also Bulgaria's defense minister. And he is basically going to be responsible for the International Stabilization Force, the body that is the military body that is supposed to disarm Hamas. But none of that was mentioned, the disarmament part, in the White House statement. This Gaza Executive Board is going to oversee the Palestinian Committee of Technocrats that is going to run the day-to-day. So basically, you have a hands-on body, that is the Gaza Executive Board, and then you have a more symbolic body that is going to be the founding executive board, to which so far only one world leader has agreed to accept it.
Only one?
Announcement, that is the Canadian Prime Minister Carney. But
Carney,
as I mentioned, nearly 60 other world leaders who have received the invitation. So all of this is going to be under the auspices of the Board of Peace, chaired by President Trump, but he's already delegated the day-to-day to various other officials. Many of them are very close to him.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna work. What else I-24 News got? Oh, they're invading the West Bank right now. Okay. Ceasefire agreement between the SDF and Syria. cyber attack on Iran's IRIB national broadcaster. Dude, like, how do we... That region we helped destabilize is not doing well. This is crazy. Like, you would expect to only see this in the movies, right?
آرمش نمیاد؟
نه ورزش شبکه ورزش
وی
بالا نوشته الان شبکه 3 ایران تیوی 3
دولتی فرصت دارن به مردم بپیوندن و یاور ملت یا اینکه
ما زودتر از همه فهمیدیم
ملت را انتخاب کنند و ننگ و نسبین ابدی ملت را
Imagine Joe Biden taking over the airwaves or something.
در ضمن شنیده باشید. کمک در راه هست. پیام ویژه‌ای دارم به پرسنل ارتش. شما ارتش ملی ایران هستید.
Is that the exiled Shah? Yes. The Shah's son.
از جان همیهنانتون حفاظت بکنید.
They don't know who you are, man. It's been like 40 years.
الان شبکه یک دو
شبکه یک دو رو
نمی‌دونم. بذار یک دو ببین یک دو هم هست.
That's wild. That is wild, dude. All right, that's enough for me tonight. Yeah. We'll do it again sometime soon. All right, later. Have a good night.